Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into a world where magic is real, but it's fading.
And powerful secret societies are clashing.
Yeah, the stakes are pretty high. We're going to be exploring two books, An Unkindness of Magicians.
And its sequel, A Sleight of Shadows.
Both of these books are really captivating, and they delve into these fascinating ideas of power, responsibility, betrayal.
And even sacrifice.
Exactly. So, to kind of set the stage, imagine a world that exists alongside our own, but it's hidden.
It's called the Unseen World.
And it's inhabited by, well, magicians.
But it's not all wands and spells.
Right. There's a whole structure to this society. What can you tell us about these houses we're hearing about?
The houses are like, think of them as ancient families, dynasties almost.
Okay, but with magic.
Exactly. Each house specializes in a certain type of magic, and they're constantly vying for dominance.
It sounds kind of like a magical Game of Thrones.
Oh, there's definitely a lot of political maneuvering.
And backstabbing.
For sure. And then there's the turning. The turning. It's like a tournament.
Okay, like a magical Olympics.
Yes, but with much higher stake. During the turning, these houses challenge each other to demonstrate their magical prowess.
So it's like a way to settle scores and prove who's the most powerful.
It's more than just a competition, though. Magic in this world is unpredictable.
Unpredictable how?
Spells can have unintended consequences.
Like side effects.
Kind of. But they can be much more dangerous.
And during the turning, those consequences are amplified.
Exactly. It makes the turning this incredibly exciting, but also incredibly dangerous event.
So we've got this world of powerful, magical families, a high-stakes tournament, and unpredictable magic. Where do our main characters fit into all of this?
We're introduced to Sydney, who's this incredibly powerful magician.
Okay, what's her story?
Well, she's representing a brand new house, one that's trying to break into this very established system.
I bet that's not easy.
It's not. Especially because Sydney's past is tied to the most feared house of all, the House of Shadows.
The House of Shadow. That sounds ominous.
They're basically the boogeyman of the unseen world.
Okay. What makes them so scary?
They practice dark magic, the kind that's fueled by sacrifice.
Sacrifice, like human sacrifice.
Unfortunately, yes. They believe that the only way to gain true power was to take it from others.
That's pretty dark. So how did Sydney escape from them?
It's a long story, but she managed to get out.
But the trauma she endured, it stays with her.
It shapes her magic, her worldview, everything.
That's heavy stuff. So we have Sydney, this powerful magician with a dark past, trying to make her way in a world controlled by these powerful families. But there's another character who seems really important, Ian.
Right, Ian. He's from House Merlin.
And they're like the top dogs, right?
Pretty much. House Merlin is seen as the most prestigious.
So Ian must have a lot of power and influence.
He does, but here's the thing. He's renounced his claim to leadership.
Why would he do that?
It's complicated. He doesn't agree with the way his family, especially his father, Miles Merlin, runs things.
So there's this family drama going.
Definitely. And it spills over into Ian's relationship with Sydney.
Because of the House of Shadows.
Exactly. House Merlin was involved in some, well, let's just say they weren't exactly innocent in the whole House of Shadows situation.
So there's this shared history, this burden that connects Sydney and Ian.
And it creates a lot of tension between them.
This is getting juicy. But wait, there's more. We also know that magic itself is fake.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
What's causing it? Is it connected to Sydney's past, to Ian's family drama?
Those are all possibilities. No one knows for sure.
So this failing magic, is it just like a little glitch, or is it something more serious?
It's causing a lot of fear and uncertainty. Spells are going wrong.
And the consequences are unpredictable.
Exactly. It's like the whole foundation of their world is starting to crumble.
It sounds like this world is on the verge of some major
It definitely is.
Yeah.
And that's where things really start to get in.
Okay, but before we dive into that, there's one more character we need to talk about. Gray Prospero. He sounds like a real troublemaker.
Oh, Gray is definitely ambitious.
Ambitious how?
He wants to reclaim his family's house, House Prospero, which he believes was unjustly taken from them.
I can see why he'd be upset about that, but is he going about it the right way?
Not exactly.
And yeah.
He's resorting to some pretty dark method.
Like what?
He's stealing magic from others.
Stealing magic? How is that even possible?
He's targeting vulnerable women, siphoning their power to fuel his own spells.
That's awful. And we know that Gray eventually betrays those closest to him.
Yes, even his best friend, Laurent.
All in the name of power.
It seems like power corrupts, even in a world of magic.
It's a classic tale. The thirst for power can lead to some pretty dark place.
And in Gray's case, it sets off a chain of events that will have devastating consequences for everyone involved.
So we have Sydney, this powerful magician haunted by her past, trying to navigate this world of cutthroat magical family.
We have Ian, wrestling with his own family legacy and his complicated feelings for Sydney.
And we have Gray, this ambitious magician who's willing to do whatever it takes to get what he wants, even if it means betraying his friend.
And then there's the failing magic, this looming threat that hangs over everything.
It sounds like this world is about to explode.
It might. And in the midst of all this chaos, something even more shocking happened. The House of Shadows returns.
Wait, I thought they were destroyed. How is that possible?
No one knows for sure, but their return throws everything into disarray.
It's like the ultimate comeback, the boogeyman rising from the ashes.
And it's a sign that the unseen world is heading towards a reckoning, a confrontation with its darkest impulses.
I am hooked. This is getting good.
Oh, it's just the beginning. Wait until you hear what happens next.
Well, we'll have to wait until part 2. Thanks for listening, everyone, and be sure to join us for the next part of our deep dive. Okay, so last time we were talking about the return of the House of Shadows.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal.
An understatement. I mean, they were supposed to be gone.
It turns out destroying a house isn't as simple as it sounds.
Is it like a hydra? You cut off one head and 2 more grow back?
In a way, yeah. See, Sydney's research reveals that the House of Shadows isn't just a place.
It's more like an idea.
Exactly. It's this concept of using sacrifice to fuel magic, this deep-seated belief that power requires taking it from others.
So as long as there's that desire for power, that willingness to exploit others, the House of Shadows can reemerge.
That's what makes it so terrifying. It can't be easily wiped out. It's like the shadow lurking in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike.
And we know that Dahlia, a survivor of the House of Shadows, is leading this resurgence. What's driving her?
Dahlia believes that the unseen world has gone astray.
Astray how?
She thinks they've become weak, too focused on rules and tradition.
So she's like a purist, a fundamentalist.
Yeah, you could say that. She thinks the only way to save magic is to go back to the old ways, the ways of sacrifice.
That's a pretty extreme viewpoint, but it sounds like she truly believes it.
Oh, she does. And that's what makes her so dangerous. She's convinced that she's doing the right thing, even if it means causing harm.
And that puts her in direct conflict with Sydney.
Absolutely. Sydney's seen the horrors of the House of Shadows firsthand. She knows the price of that kind of power.
And she's determined to find a different way, a way to preserve magic without resorting to those dark practices.
It's like they represent these two opposing forces, these two different visions for the future of magic.
One clinging to the past, the other fighting for something new.
And their clash is inevitable.
So how does Sydney even begin to fight against someone like Dahlia?
It's not easy. Remember, she just sacrificed a huge portion of her own power.
Right, to save those kids who are being used as magical batteries.
So she's not going into this with overwhelming force. She has to be smarter, more strategic.
So it's a battle of wits, not just a magical slugfest.
Exactly. Sydney realizes that she needs to understand the enemy to find their weakness.
And her research in the archives is crucial here, right?
Yes. She uncovers these ancient spells, the founding spells that created the unseen world in the first.
Wait, so she's like hacking into the source code of magic itself.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. She's trying to figure out how magic works at its most fundamental level.
Because if she can understand how it works, she can figure out how to disrupt it.
Right. But it's incredibly dangerous. Tampering with those founding spells could have unintended consequences.
But Sydney's willing to take that risk.
She knows that sometimes you have to break things in order to fix them.
She's not alone in this, right? She has people helping her.
Oh, yeah. She's got a whole team. There's Laura, her former client, who's become a powerful magician in his own right.
She's come a long way.
And there's Grace, the new head of House Prospero.
She seems pretty badass.
She is. She's challenging the old ways, trying to reform the system from within.
So they're like the rebels fighting against this entrenched power structure.
Yeah, and then there's Harper.
But she's not a magician, right?
No, she's a mundane, but she's incredibly intelligent and resourceful.
So she's like the brains of the operation.
In a way, yeah. She does a lot of the research, helps Sydney make sense of all the information she's uncovering.
It's interesting how she's able to contribute so much, even without magical ability.
It shows that you don't need magic to make a difference in this world.
Okay, so we've got Sydney and her crew working to dismantle the unseen world while Dahlia is rebuilding the House of Shadow. What happens next?
Well, Dahlia starts recruiting.
Recruiting? For what?
For her new House of Shadows. She's targeting young magicians, promising them power and belonging.
It's like she's creating a magical cult.
And one of her targets is Mia, this talented young magician who's struggling to find her place.
Mia, the one who is being held captive by those rogue magicians.
The same one. She's vulnerable, eager for acceptance, and Dahlia knows how to exploit that.
So Sydney's not just fighting against a system, she's fighting to save this young woman from being drawn into darkness.
And it's a tough battle. How do you fight someone who thinks they're doing the right thing, even if their actions are causing harm?
That's a tough question. How does Sydney even approach this situation?
She realizes that she can't just fight force with force. She needs to understand Mia, to see things from her perspective.
Empathy is a powerful tool.
And it's something that Sydney's had to learn the hard way. She's been through so much trauma, so much pain.
But that pain has given her a unique perspective.
Exactly. It allows her to connect with Mia, to see the fear and uncertainty that's driving her.
So instead of judging Mia, Sydney tries to help her.
She offers her a different path, a way out of the dark.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of all this conflict, there's still room for compassion, for understanding.
And that sometimes the most powerful way to fight your enemy is to try to understand.
It's a pretty radical idea, especially in a world where power is everything.
And it's what sets Sydney apart. She's not interested in just winning. She wants to create a world where everyone has a chance to thrive.
So how does this all play out? Does Sydney manage to reach Mia to stop Dahlia?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Lay it on me. What's the plan?
Sydney decides to challenge Dahlia to a duel, a magical showdown with Mia as the prize.
A duel? Is that wise? I mean, she's still weakened from sacrificing so much of her power.
It's a gamble, but Sydney has a plan.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the plan?
Remember those founding spells she uncovered?
Yeah, the ones that control how magic works?
Sydney realizes that those spells are a vulnerability. They represent a single point of failure for the entire system.
So by challenging Dahlia, by drawing all that magical energy into one place, Sydney's creating an opportunity.
Exactly. It's like she's creating a lightning rod, focusing all that power into a single point.
And if she can disrupt those summoning spells, if she can unravel the very fabric of the unseen world,
she can break the cycle of the House of Shadows once and for all.
That's a pretty bold plan.
Thanks.
But we all know how dangerous it is to mess with those founding spells.
The risks are huge. The entire unseen world could be destabilized.
So it's all come down to this epic showdown between Sydney and Dahlia.
And the fate of magic itself hangs in the balance.
I can't wait to see how this plays out.
You and me both.
Well, we'll have to wait until part 3 to find out what happens. Thanks for listening, everyone, and be sure to join us for the final part of our deep dive into the unseen world. All right, so where did we leave off?
Well, Sydney had just challenged Dahlia to a duel, a magical showdown with really high stakes.
Yeah, with the fate of Mia and the entire unseen world hanging in the balance.
It was a risky move.
A gamble, really. But Sydney was betting on her understanding of those founding spells.
She believed that by disrupting those spells, she could break the cycle of the House of Shadows.
But messing with those spells, that's like playing with fire, right?
Definitely. It could have had catastrophic consequences.
So what happened? Did Sydney pull it off?
She did, but it wasn't easy.
I bet. What went down during the duel?
Well, it was unlike anything we'd seen before.
More magical fireworks.
Oh, way more than fireworks. The amount of magic unleashed during that confrontation, it was almost overwhelming.
I can only imagine. So Sydney disrupted the founding spells.
Yes, the old rules, the hierarchies, the entire structure of the unseen world, it all came crashing down.
Wow, that's a pretty huge shift. What happened in the aftermath?
Well, there was a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion.
Understandably, I mean, their entire world had just been turned upside down.
But what's interesting is that Sydney didn't try to seize power.
You mean she didn't try to become the new ruler of this new world she'd created?
No, she'd seen what power could do, how it could corrupt even the best of intentions.
So what does she do?
She became a guide, a mentor, helping others navigate this new, uncharted territory.
That's pretty selfless, considering she could have easily taken control.
Yeah, but that's not who Sydney is. She understands that real change, lasting change, has to come from within.
So she's more interested in empowering others than in ruling over them.
Exactly. And one of the people she focuses on is Mia.
The young magician who was almost drawn into the House of Shadow.
The same one. Mia's pretty lost after the duel.
I can imagine. It must have been a lot to process.
Sydney sees that Mia needs guidance, not judgment.
So she takes her under her wing.
In a way, yeah. She helps Mia understand that magic itself isn't good or evil.
It's how you use it that matters.
Exactly. And in this new world, where the old rules no longer apply, that's more important than ever.
So it's like a fresh start for everyone, a chance to rebuild their world based on different values.
A world where power isn't concentrated in the hands of a few, but is shared more equitably.
But that doesn't mean there aren't still dangers, right?
Of course not. There are always those who will try to exploit any system for their own gain.
So it's not a happily ever after end.
No, but it's a hopeful one.
A world where change is possible, where the cycle of violence can be broken.
And where even those who have made mistakes can find redemption.
It's a powerful message, one that resonates even outside of this fantastical world of magic.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference, to fight for a better world, no matter how small our actions may seem.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
We've explored this intricate world of magic, power, and shifting alliances.
And we've seen how, even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there's always hope.
For our listeners who are intrigued by these ideas, I highly recommend checking out An Unkindness of Magicians and A Sleight of Shadows.
You won't be disappointed.
These books really make you think about the nature of power, the consequences of our choices, and the potential for change.
And they remind us that the fight for a just and equitable world is never truly over.
It's an ongoing process that requires constant vigilance, compassion, and a belief in the possibility of a better future.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be sure to tune in next time for another deep dive into the world of stories.